to be shocking, but hear me out. You've been studying English for years, but you still have a lot to improve, right? Then you immediately need to stop trying to learn English. It's not as important as you think. Answer this question. What comes to your mind when I tell you learning English? Is it being able to speak English or perfecting your English? If your answer is similar to those, then you immediately need to change your perspective about learning English immediately. Learning English only provides you with language rules and grammar. You're gonna be shocked, but wait for it. Grammar and language rules only make up 20% of what you actually need to speak English fluently.
I realized while I was editing that what I just said might come off wrong. I don't mean grammar is useless, it's insignificant, and you should never study it. No, I'm just saying we spend years trying to learn grammar, but acquisition and practice contribute to 80% of fluency, whereas grammar contributes only 20%.
20%. Only 1/5, guys. It's not as important as you think. Before you jump to your keyboard, hear me out. I agree. As people who speak English as a second language, without grammar and language rules, we would be lost. Like, it would be so hard to create the logic of English in our minds. But keep in mind, learning something only allows you to call that information back if you've used it recently. If you haven't used that information recently, you'll probably have a hard time recalling that information, or you may need to study it, learn it again. For example, if you get the urge to check up some phrasal verbs constantly, for example, do I use pull with off? Like, if you constantly feel like you need to learn these over and over again, then yeah, you need to stop learning. You need to start acquiring. Acquisition is a natural and subconscious process. It's basically acquiring a skill. So if you know, then I tell you call off. For example, I called off the meeting. If you understand that without checking the dictionary, if it comes to you naturally, then this phrasal verb is in your subconscious. I'm sure you all relate to this. Like, you're reading a sentence or a paragraph, you don't know a grammar rule or that specific word, but you understand it from the context. That means you acquired it. It comes back to you. So it's basically acquiring a skill. If you haven't practiced that skill for a while, it's okay. You'll pick up the pace easily. It's like riding a bike. Imagine a baby. When we pick up our native language, are we taught anything? Do you know any babies that study tenses, phrasal verbs? Of course not. And if you've noticed, I said pick up our native language, because that's what happens when you acquire a skill. You start to pick up on it naturally, subconsciously. You might ask the question, if we are picking up our native language, if we acquire our native language as a baby, why can't we pick up our second language? You're absolutely right. A theory explains this simply because we're not babies anymore. We grow self-conscious as we become adults. We fear failure, we fear humiliation. That's why we innately prioritize learning English, because we want to do it properly, starting with the rules. Let's be honest to each other. In my country, English is a mandatory course for 8 years, guys. 8 years. If it was enough, if grammar and language rules were enough, then all my fellow people would be near native English speakers. But that's not the case at all. Most people in my country graduate being unable to speak English. That's why English is so valued in my country, even in 2022. For example, if you apply to a job and you can speak English fluently, you automatically become one of the top candidates. Or You can get promotions easier, for example, because you can speak English fluently. It's only natural when there are so many people who can't communicate in English still. And if we go back just a second, I said acquisition is a natural and subconscious process. Then how can you start doing it purposefully? I'll give you the answer. I'll share my greatest tip. Start today. No procrastination. You'll open a clean slate and you'll create what I call the ultimate English habitat. You'll surround yourself with extraordinary amount of English and you'll expose yourself to as much as English input as you can. For example, if you're into sports, follow some international sports accounts on Instagram. If you're into makeup and beauty and lifestyle, instead of subscribing to your local influencers, try subscribing to international influencers. Start listening to podcasts on Spotify. I have a podcast series too. If you're interested, sign up to Reddit, use Twitter more, subscribe to my channel. And it doesn't end there. Yes, you need an extraordinary amount of input to start acquiring English. You also need to practice it, which means you need to create your own output. I mean, it's like, what good is owning a violin if you're never going to play it, right? Pick up that violin and goddamn start playing it. So how can you create your own output? Just simply interact with your English habitat. You follow that sports accounts on Instagram, right? Leave a comment on their latest post. Reply to a comment that was left by another user on that international influencer's channel. Join a thread on Reddit and start a conversation. After watching a movie, leave a review on Twitter. Like, incorporate these things into your daily life. The best way to create your own output is practicing English with someone, but I didn't have that. I didn't have anyone I could practice English with. I had to do it all on my own and it worked out. Like, English is my second language, guys, and I can speak. What I'm trying to tell you, if you don't have anyone to practice with, don't wait for that person to come. Don't wait for someone else to take you from point A to point B, because waiting isn't progress. You can take the wheel yourself. You can do it yourself. You can go from point A to point B yourself. I did it. I am a living, breathing example. The most crucial tip I can give you is that it's not going to be fast. Some people have this perception that by watching 2 movies in English, they will magically gain upper intermediate English as if they're touched with a magical wand. That's not gonna happen. The best advice I can give you is that acknowledge that it's going to take time. It may take weeks, it may take months, it may take years. Everyone's journey is different. It took me 1.5 years to realize that I am fluent in English, and it took me an additional 2 years to become near native. My process was, I wasn't trying to become fluent in English. I was just constantly exposed to English content because, for example, one summer for 3 months, I've watched American TV shows. Suddenly, I started to pick up things. I've never liked studying English, for example, in school, and my English was the worst in my class. One summer changed everything, and 1.5 years later, I realized, oh, I'm fluent. I can communicate well. I was the worst. Then 1.5 years later, I became the best in my class. It's all thanks to subconscious acquiring. After I realized that, and after I realized how much I like English, I consciously started to acquire English. I surrounded myself with English content, and at the end of 2 years I was just done. I didn't need to pick up a book. Others were trying to learn English, but I acquired English. Others were trying to pass an exam. I was just communicating in that language. So in total, it took me 3.5 years to become near native. I wasn't even beginner. And then I became near native in 3.5 years. And it doesn't mean that it will take you this long, because like I said, in the first 1.5 years, I wasn't even aiming to improve my English. It just happened. But if you're watching this video, that means you already have a background. I didn't have anything, and you're enthusiastic, so you're searching for this. Truth to be told, I didn't have anyone to give me tips like this. And you have the blessing of technology, so it will be much faster for you. But again, if you're waiting to be near native in a couple of weeks, that's just unrealistic, bro. Don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself because it will end up in you losing motivation. So start your acquisition process today. Don't procrastinate. Start surrounding yourself. And you can start by listening to this podcast because my podcast series is aimed for people like us, those who speak English as a second language. So you'll have an easy time understanding them. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you in my next video.